Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how now could potentially be the time to buy a car. I'm going to give the argument for buying a car right now, and then I'm also going to give an argument against buying a car because I know that we're kind of in that like crunch week right before Christmas where a lot of people like to get those, end of the year deals, and so we'll kind of talk about the pros and cons with both sides. But before we get into this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below, and then if you see more content just like this, and I recommend you subscribe because I post videos every single day. Let's get into it. Let's start off by talking about the case for buying a car right now. First off, money itself is going to continue to get more and more expensive. The Federal Reserve has basically stated that they plan on increasing rates over the next few meetings, and after they do all their rate increases, they're just going to hold rates at the higher percentage until they feel like the economy is in a place that makes sense. And they obviously don't want to lower rates too quickly or too soon, because then ultimately what that would do is probably cause a buying frenzy, and then that would undo all of the work that they have put forth already. And so if you buy tomorrow, you're going to have to pay more money on an auto loan than if you purchase today. So that's a pretty good reason. And then on top of that, a lot of automakers this month are currently offering cemented rates, where they're basically offering a much lower rate than what you'd be able to get at a bank or a credit union. And the chances of them offering those lower rates next year are not zero, but typically that's what you'll see at the end of the year, not at the beginning of the year or the middle of the year. Again, sometimes it does happen. It just depends on exactly what's happening within the market, but there's no guarantee, whereas we have a guarantee with some of these lower rates that automakers are currently offering. And then moving from that, automakers have also said that they plan on increasing the prices of their vehicles throughout the 2023 sales year, which means that not only is the money to buy the vehicle more expensive next year, but the vehicles themselves are also going to be more expensive next year as well in terms of the MSRP, or the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And so that's kind of another reason to potentially buy right now, is that you can purchase a vehicle at a slightly lower MSRP. Something else that also needs to be noted is we are at the point in the year where we're having a model shift with most manufacturers, where manufacturers are going from one model year to the next. And so just like every other year, when you have a model year shift, that means that you can get a better deal on the outgoing model, even if the vehicle hasn't been fully redesigned for the next model year, right? People always just seem to want, the newest model year, which is, it's always funny to me. It's like, it's the same exact car, but it just has a 23 with it instead of a 22, right? And so that's another reason that could be a good reason to buy is, you can typically get a better deal towards the end of the year on old model year product. And like I said, with these price increases, what you're going to see across the board is most 2023 vehicles, or pretty much every 2023 vehicle, is going to have a higher MSRP than that same 2022 vehicle. And again, if the vehicle hasn't been changed at all from 2022 to 2023 for the model year, why buy a 23? The warranty is the same. You're just paying more money for a similar product. And with certain manufacturers, like Ford, for example, you're actually going to get less options with a 2023 vehicle versus a 2022. I reviewed a few 2023 F-150s, and they don't, the higher up packages don't have heated steering wheel, for example, or massaging seats like what they're supposed to have. And so it's kind of another reason. So you can get the features you want, and then, obviously a better price. And then something else that is really important to note is that, a lot of dealers had a bad October and a bad November, and they're starting to kind of have a bad December. It's been a pretty rough month so far. But what this means for you is, dealers don't want to have 3 bad months in a row. And so a lot of dealers are going to be more willing to work with you right now than, what they were willing to do just a few months ago. And so that could be another reason as to why you should purchase now, is because, your chances of being able to negotiate a large amount off of the price of a vehicle are much higher now than they were just a few months ago. However, let's now make the case for why you shouldn't buy right now. First off, with those increases in interest rates, that means that is going to put more downward pressure on the entire car market, the used car market and the new car market. And we already know that the used car market is still consistently declining. And so that means that, with a used car, you'll be able to buy that used car for a cheaper price tomorrow than what you'll be able to get for today. And notice that in the first part of the video where I talked about the benefits of buying now, I didn't really talk about used cars, and that's because, I don't think that now is a good time to buy a used car. Now, with new cars, again, like I said earlier, manufacturers have stated that they're basically planning on increasing the MSRP on these cars, but that doesn't mean that the actual transaction price is going to be any higher next year. There's a potential that the actual transaction price could be lower for a number of reasons, because MSRP is only part of the equation. You also have invoice that's associated with the vehicle, and then you have holdback. Invoice is what a lot of people think that dealers pay for a car, but in reality, dealers pay invoice minus holdback on a vehicle. And again, it depends on the brand. Some brands have different rules than others, but that's a pretty safe point to assume in terms of what a dealer is going to pay for a vehicle. And so right now, what is typically happening with most manufacturers is that vehicles are selling at around MSRP. But, maybe in a few months, those vehicles that have a slightly higher MSRP might be selling for invoice. And I can tell you with most vehicles, the difference between MSRP and invoice is a pretty substantial amount. And then the difference between MSRP and invoice minus holdback is a much more substantial amount. I mean, with most vehicles, not all vehicles, you're looking at like a 10% difference. And so like if the MSRP in the vehicle increases by 1%, but then you can get 10% off of MSRP, then yeah, you're going to be paying substantially less for the vehicle. So that is a really strong argument as to why right now might not be the best time, because again, although the sticker price will be higher, the actual transaction price could potentially be substantially lower. And diving back into the used car market, this could be a really, really good reason as to why you should wait, because a lot of you right now might be new car buyers because of how overinflated used car prices are. But with the declines we've been seeing, it's kind of leading us into the trajectory that, well, used cars are about to become a lot more affordable. And so you might go from being a new car buyer to a used car buyer. And this is something that happened quite often in, well, a normal market, the market that we experienced prior to the pandemic. Because, right now you might think that, okay, well, it makes more sense to buy new because the used one's about the same price as the new one. But what if we go back to being in a market where you can buy a used vehicle that's a year old with 5 or 10,000 miles on it, and it is, 20% less than what the brand new one would cost? Because again, that's a lot of times that's what we would see in a regular market. And so that's another good argument as to why you should wait, because there are probably going to be those deals. I don't even know why that was weird, but anyways, there are probably going to be those deals in the near future where you'll be able to just buy a heavily depreciated, not quite new, but almost new vehicle. Then the next thing that is a good reason for waiting is because you can turn yourself from being a finance buyer into a cash buyer. And this is something that I used to talk about more often on the channel, but I kind of went away from because, well, can't give financial advice. And so this is not financial advice, but hypothetically, what you could do, and this is something that I actually did when I, didn't have the funds to just pay cash for cars, is I would basically take what my hypothetical car payment would be on a car, and I would pay that into a savings account every single month. And I would basically just continue to do that until I had enough money to pay cash for that vehicle. And so this is something else that you should do. Like, if you can afford a $500 or $1,000 a month car payment, then you can afford to put $500 or $1,000 per month into a savings account, and then just continue to do that until there's enough money in there to pay cash for the car, or at least until you have a much larger down payment. And either of those options will be great in the market that we're in, because, well, if you pay cash for a car, you completely get around the higher interest rates. They don't matter because you're paying cash. And if you put more money down, yes, you will still experience the higher interest rates that we have right now, but what that will in turn do for you is make it so you're paying less interest overall, because your total auto loan amount will be lower. And so that's something that I think is a really good reason for waiting. 6 to 12 months is like, okay, well, if you're thinking about taking out $1,000 or $1,500, because I mean, car payments nowadays are so crazy, $1,000 or $1,500 a month car payment, take that same $1,000 or $1,500 and just, again, put it away for the next 6 to 12 months as, the market continues to evolve and as prices, especially in the used car market, come down. And then once you have that big stack of cash, then hey, maybe, in 6 to 12 months when those prices are lower, you'll realize that, now's a much better time to buy, and you'll be in a much better position. So to pull everything together, there are obviously benefits and downsides to purchasing at any time, especially right now with all the volatility that we're seeing in the car market. And well, as for my personal opinion on the whole situation, I think that if you're not a business owner, now is probably not the best time to buy. Again, with business owners, you can get a tax write-off with the vehicles that you purchase at the end of the year. So that's why, even if the market is not in a great situation where you might lose quite a bit of money in depreciation on that car, well, you wrote it off anyways. So it's like, who cares, right? But for the average consumer, unless you're getting an absolutely screaming deal on a vehicle, it probably doesn't make sense. And the thing that I really want to emphasize is if you purchase a vehicle today, you need to go in with the mentality that you would have had a few years ago, that you are going to lose a lot of money on that vehicle in depreciation, whether it's new or used, because again, the used car market still has a lot to drop in terms of overall value. And then with the new car market, well, again, first off, prices are unsustainable because of how expensive new cars have gotten. But with the used car market dropping, that means that, well, when your new car is no longer new and it's a used car, it's not going to be worth what it was over the last couple of years, right? You're no longer going to be able to go and buy a new car and trade it in for what you paid for it or potentially a little bit more. You're going to be in the situation that, again, most people are in 2019 and before, where you buy a new car, you drive it off the lot, and it loses 10 to 20% in value just right off the bat. And then you drive it for a few years, and then, it's worth half as much as what you paid for it initially. Obviously, there are cars that are outside of that, but that is the mentality that I would take right now. And so I think that would obviously shift some of your opinions in terms of whether or not you should buy a vehicle. And I'm going to say this right now because I know a lot of people that follow this channel buy more specialty type vehicles. Obviously, those tend to not follow normal depreciation curves, but understand that as the economy gets in a worse and worse situation, there are going to be fewer and fewer buyers for your specialty vehicle. So don't expect there to be the same level of appreciation or just value holding that was there in the past. And so, I mean, like a really good example is I always have people ask me on Ford Raptors, like right now, if you buy a Ford Raptor, whether it's a Gen 2 or a Gen 3, understand that you're probably going to lose quite a bit of money. And so unless you are willing to lose quite a bit of money, probably don't do it. It's a great truck. It's a fun truck to drive. I own a Gen 3 Raptor, but again, that's the mentality I would have. No matter what you're buying, just understand that's just the market we're in. When the market's declining, the market's declining. So yeah, hopefully that helps you guys out. I'll see you.